My body was just kind of failing me at the young age of 20. Then, was doing whatever the doctors recommended, and it was not making me better.
Welcome back to the Field Practitioner Podcast. Today we're doing our very special Meet Your Health Hero segment. This segment, we do our best to spotlight practitioners who are not just creating impact, but they're doing it with fulfillment, purpose, and authenticity. I've had the honor of meeting some of the most amazing practitioners in our space, and today's guest fits that mold perfectly. And these are people who are truly changing the world. And I want to make sure they don't stay a best kept secret much longer. So, hey, Katie, how's everything going today?
Hi, Ricky. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to share some of the hard-earned lessons that I've had throughout my career as a practitioner.
Amazing, amazing. No, I'm so honored to have you on, and I know I've connected with you a while ago, and I love what you're doing, and I love that, like myself, you're doing so many things to help others, not just from a client standpoint, but a practitioner standpoint as well. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself to the audience and let us know who you are and what do you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I am a functional nutritionist. So I actually got my degree in functional medicine and nutrition. And so I love having both of those pieces because the functional medicine gives me the ability to evaluate someone's systems, to know what dysfunctions they have, to figure out what their root causes are and what a good treatment plan would be. But then I also get to be in the nitty gritty and helping them to make dietary changes and address their stress and improve their circadian rhythm. So I love having that combination. And our practice is just a functional medicine practice. So we don't have a niche. Our niche really is just that we are very true to the principles of functional medicine. So if you're, someone who does things outside of that, then we might not be a good fit. But whatever health condition you have that you want to solve through, evidence-based kind of systematic methods, then that's where you're people.
Amazing. So I didn't know that about you, and I'd love to learn more. So I know you said you got a degree in functional medicine. What drew you into that space? What made you make that big decision?
Yeah, so I actually started getting interested in health when I was a child because my mom had fibromyalgia. And this was in the 90s, and no one really knew what it was. And so she would see practitioners that would give her recommendations that made her much worse. So she'd come home and we'd see her just be miserable, not be able to parent, not be able to get off the couch or in so much pain because she was doing the kinds of therapies that they were recommending or the medications. And so right away I was like, oh, healthcare is horrible. Like I don't like this system. I don't want to have to ever need this. And then we were like, okay, we want some alternative options, but we grew up poor in Detroit and that was not really in the cards for us to go see like an alternative doctor. So I decided I'll be that alternative doctor because I'm a middle child. So I got to keep the family together. So I started reading medical encyclopedias in middle school and signing up for Chris Kresser and Mark Hyman's newsletters in high school before they were ever part of a functional medicine movement, and reading Jordan Rubin's book. And these things kind of just started to shape what I thought was maybe the path forward for how we can heal and how we can be healthy. And then I got sick myself in college. I traveled internationally and picked up parasites and bacteria of all kinds. I was in lots of different hospitals and came back with IBS and Hashimoto's, and my body was just kind of failing me at the young age of 20, which I know you can very much relate to. And then was doing whatever the doctors recommended, and it was not making me better. And I still had severe IBS several years later and felt like I couldn't really function. And that's when I was like, I need to figure this out for myself. So I did kind of figure that out for myself by just going in and seeing a doctor and trying to understand who are the people that do things outside of conventional medicine. And that's when I really kind of discovered there was this pathway towards learning functional medicine itself, because I didn't want to go be a dietitian. I didn't want to go back to school to be a doctor. It's when I found out that you could actually get a degree in functional medicine, I signed up right away.
Wow. like I'm having flashbacks. I'm like, if I knew that you could get a degree in functional medicine, I don't think I would have gone in any other direction. So that's so powerful. And again, I learned so much about the practitioners I interview. I know I've known you for a short while, but I had no idea. And it's not just a personal story, but one that was within your family. So it's interesting. My mom was actually my first person I saw go through poor health, and she had Hashimoto's as well for close to 40 years. And someone I saw just energy levels tank, digestion tank, and she just kind of turned into a shell of herself. So I know that could be such a powerful motivation. And it's funny, I've always kind of waited for someone to bring up that book, but Chris Kresser's book, shout out Chris Kresser, it was actually the first book that I picked up during chiro school. I remember, I think it was first year chiro school, and it was my first exposure that there's tests out there that can tell you about the functional side, and there's protocols out there. And I had no idea about all of this. So I love the origin story, and that's so inspiring. So I know when you were going through it, it probably doesn't seem like a positive event whatsoever. But when you reflect backwards, and I often encourage listeners to reflect backwards, it could be the most pivotal moment of your career, right? So
Absolutely, yeah.
you found this world.
And I love that. It means you were a renegade as well, because, way back in the day, Chris Kresser was talking about how high cholesterol isn't as dangerous as it seems. And it was just very, kind of outside of the norm, but from a very researched and evidence standpoint. So I love that that's how you kind of got introduced as well. For me, I always joke that God has given me every ailment known to man because then it changes like how deeply I go into what do we do about this and how well I can counsel either a practitioner that I'm training or a client, and how to improve it. And so, I mean, I've counted it up. I've had over like 24 diagnoses over the years and health issues. But I'm healthy. I'm standing here well today. But it definitely things come up, and then I'm like, all right, God, I'm ready. Like, what are we going to learn? What do I need to change about the way I'm helping patients with this currently that I'm going to be able to do better now that I've gone through this?
Wow. So 24 diagnoses, and I like that you have a very analytical mind. So you kind of see it as problem solution, and what do I have to learn next? And I love that. So you remind me a lot of myself in the sense that you are the practitioner's practitioner, and that's who you're also attracted to from an education standpoint as well, because like even this podcast, right? Even doing YouTube like you do, or any sort of social media, like this is kind of secondary. We've had to almost like learn how to do this. It doesn't come natural. It might for you, but for me, that like I love to have this conversation, but this is something that took me out of my conventional box as well. So I love that we are in an industry and a career where there's just never ending learning, and it's fun learning if you make it fun, right?
Yes, yeah, it definitely is. It's not always fun right in that moment, but it is, yeah, it's definitely very fun to be able to know that you're going to be so much better than you were, a couple of months ago. When I look back at my appointment notes, when I have like a patient come back, and even if it's just been a year, and I look back at those notes and I'm like, oh, wow, like I can't believe I was doing that, like things change so quickly in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you often reflect back and you're like, I think of my first 10 patients all the time. And I'm like, with everything I knew at the time, I did really well. We saw positive outcomes, but I'm like, I wish I could like take what I know now and go back in a time machine and re-see those people. So it never ends, right? And
Yeah.
today's podcast, it's called the Fulfilled Practitioner Podcast. So I always put every single person on the spot, and I'd love to know, what does being a fulfilled practitioner mean to you?
Yeah, I have thought deeply about this over the years because when I started my practice, it was because I wanted to be able to treat my patients in the way that I felt was best. And the clinic that I was at before didn't really give me the freedom to do that. And so over time, it just started to feel like I wasn't really living aligned and with integrity because I wasn't doing something or recommending something that I thought could really help them. And so I started my practice just out of that need to be able to help patients with integrity, not out of some, big goal to be a business owner or anything like that. And then it just took off. It just grew, partly because I realize now because I had already been doing social media and blogs. And I was really just doing it because when a patient would ask a question that I didn't want to repeat, I just wanted to be like, go look at this post. And so that's what I would do. I was like, okay, if I've said something over and over again and I want to have a lot of research to prove to people why I'm saying it, then I would go write it down and then I'd point patients to it. But I realized that that actually was marketing after the fact. And it was helping people to find me when I started my own practice. And then we also had the pandemic and people were really interested in their health during that time. So my practice just took off, and because I didn't have any training or any knowledge and I hadn't really planned this, I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And Ricky, I spent some years not fulfilled, let me tell you. It was really hard because I started hiring and having a group practice and then having admin and having HR and accounting and all of these things that I didn't know anything about and I really had no interest in. And so I was really stressed and there were a lot of tears and there were a lot of hard nights, but I was so motivated because I knew if I had more people working in my practice, I was helping more people. And that's always what drives me, is helping people to be able to live the quality of life that they desire. And so I knew I had to figure it out. And so over the years, now that, the last couple of years, I really have felt very fulfilled as a practitioner and really stable and just, really calm and grateful for the practice that I have. And so the way that you said, like, I have a very analytical mind. And so I'm like, okay, what have I done that has changed and how can I capitalize on that and reinforce it so I can continue to feel more fulfilled and then save other practitioners the heartache that I went through? And so through that process, I came up with the fulfillment formula. So it's like a Venn diagram, but with 3 pieces instead of 2, because we're functional medicine, so we got to be more complex, right? And so the 3 parts in the fulfillment formula is the first one, which is the one that we're all most comfortable with, which is functional medicine knowledge. And so this is understanding, root causes and diet and lifestyle and interventions. And there's always more we can do in this front, right? But being able to have a place that you can go that has your functional medicine knowledge, that makes it really quick and easy and you can just research things, that's when you can feel more fulfilled in your knowledge. Because just having finished training and graduating, like, that usually is not enough. Like, it doesn't teach you how to actually work with the patient. And then the second one out of the 3 is connected client care. So this is client care that is based on a therapeutic relationship that's very strong in rapport, that works on mindset, that really leads to transformation, not just getting them results, right? Because for me, a failure of what I've done with a patient would be I got them to reach all their goals, and then, a year later or 2 years later, they're back in my office or someone else's office being like, yeah, I did this program a while ago, it was great, but, as soon as I stopped it, things started coming back and now I'm back where I was. Right? That's a failure to me. So I'm always thinking about how can we make this sustainable? The only way to really do that is you got to change the brain, right? You got to change what's going on in the mindset. Yeah, so that's connected client care. And then the third one is business optimization. And this is where Ricky shines. And this is where I learned a lot from him and a lot of others online in order to continually get better at this, because it is my weakest spot because I'm a practitioner. And I'm going to focus all my time and energy on those first 2. But fortunately, when you do focus your time and energy on the first 2, you don't have to be as great with the third one because people will come, because you'll get referrals. But business optimization is things like systems and efficiency and marketing. When you have all 3 of those, where you've got them, a decent place, where you've got standard operating procedures and you know what you're going to say, and you've got all of your knowledge written down where you can easily access it for any patient, and you're not having to start from scratch and research every case, you will start to get great results, you're going to get referrals, and you're going to have free time. Right? And that's what I realized, those 3 things is what really makes me fulfilled.
I love it. I need to like steal that from you or pay you a royalty for that formula, because as you know, that's the title of my book, The Fulfilled Practitioner. And there's so much overlap there. And what I love, as I was listening, and I tend toward the analytical side as well. So I have a big analytical part to my mind, but on the DISC scoring system, if you're familiar with it,
I am.
So I'm like really empathetic, really connected. So I love to connect. So as I was looking at your story there and kind of seeing the parts move and how you came to this formula, I talk about it in my book. And I love that you started with the purest intention. So I always tell practitioners, choose the right intention. And you said it there where you're like, I didn't get into practice to like start a business, right? Like that was not the reason for you to want to do a practice. There's a lot of easier businesses where you'll sleep
Yeah.
peacefully through the night and you won't be woken up at like 4 a.m. thinking about a client or a patient. Like that's what we experience, right? But we love it. But you started with that and then you built systems on top of it. And I feel practitioners, they don't think like that. So you have a question come in, it's immediate feedback for you that, hey, I don't have an FAQ for this. I don't have a video for this. I don't have a blog I can send them for this. And that's how you create these systems. And I did a podcast a little while ago and I joked, but I was sincere and I truly meant it, is like when people would talk about systems 7, 8, 9 years ago, I would nod along and I would be like, oh, I know what you're talking about, but I had no idea what they were talking about. So this is what systems are essentially. Like even from a knowledge-based standpoint, I love that you said that, like you do need clinical knowledge. This is not an industry where you can just rely on what you learned in your one designation or one program.
Yeah.
If you're not keeping up with it, you're missing out on things that are literally shortcuts for people to take to get better, faster, more efficiently, more affordably, more practically. So you're building systems on top of that. And then I also love that you acknowledge that you don't have to be perfect in all of these things. So we often teach practitioners is you don't have to be an expert marketer. You don't need to know Facebook or Meta ads inside out, but you should have a base understanding of these things so you know who to go, where is that resource for me to learn this and move forward. So yeah, you don't need to know it all, but you need to have that baseline understanding. So I love the formula. That's totally amazing.
Yeah, and I love that, we have practitioners like yourself that have done the client care, that have, worked with patients, that knows what that's like, and then is also teaching how do you do technology, how do you create systems, how do you improve your marketing, because it just means so much more when you've got that heartfelt, you can trust where you're coming from, and that it's going to make sense. It's going to feel aligned when you follow through on those recommendations, because it's coming from the same place that our hearts are coming from as practitioners.
Absolutely. And I feel like even in this like motivational world we live in, and there's always motivational quotes on social media, people say stuff all the time. And I always want to preface anything I say that kind of starts there and then elaborate on it. But we live in an era where technology has just expanded exponentially, and now we're in the era of AI. And if you don't think AI is going to affect you, it already is, and it will continue to. But the one thing that AI will never be able to recreate is authenticity. And that term authenticity is another one most practitioners just nod along to, like, oh, I know what that means. But if you truly knew what authenticity means, like, you need to know that the information you're giving is up to date. It's genuine. It is in your client and patient's best interest. It is something that will help them move the needle forward, and it's coming from you. Or else, like, this is how you make yourself be irreplaceable, is like, why would you not just have an algorithm? They could just go to ChatGPT and turn it into an algorithm, right? Like fulfilled practitioners are not algorithms. They know that they have such an important role to coach people. So I love that. And I love that you're living your life by these guidelines and through this formula as well. That's an awesome share. What's giving you the most joy in your work right now?
So I've already shared, I love working with patients and getting them to their goals. So right now, giving me the most joy is teaching other practitioners to do that, because it allows me to multiply myself, right? So at first I was like, I didn't really have a desire to work with practitioners. It came through hiring and training over and over again, because I've been open as a business for 7 years now. So we've had a few people come and go, and we also have, currently have 4 practitioners. And so I've been able to, train a dozen people over the years. And through that process, was able to see when I trained them and then watch their work and, am looking over their patients, they're getting their patients very similar results to what I was getting them. And that was just like this amazing, light bulb moment of like, oh my gosh, I can help so many more people. And so when I was doing that, though, they were all telling me that they were like, I wish that the colleagues from my program that I graduated from had these resources, because I'm in forums with them or text, threads, and they're saying that they're struggling, whether in different parts. Some of them are great at the connection component, but they just didn't have the knowledge of what do I actually do to help this patient, or they're great at both of those, but they just don't have the systems to be operating a business. So they're just drowning in constant admin work. And that over like 2 years was really tugging at my heart. And I was like, oh, I have all of these resources because I record everything so that we never have to come up with anything. We just copy and paste whatever we do. And I can't just let them sit here for us, 5 practitioners to use. And so I was like, I'm just going to kind of publish it and put it out. Oops, sorry, that was my water glass. I'm gonna publish it and put it out there, and I'm just gonna, let people use it if they want to. But then as I started to do that, my heart started to grow of like, well, let me also share this with the practitioners. Let me also do this, and this could help them, because if I can help practitioners to be more confident, to be more efficient, to be more evidence-based, these things are going to help their patients so much more. Because I'm sure you've experienced this as well, and many practitioners listening, we get patients into our office and they've actually been burned by functional medicine. It's not just the conventional system. It's by seeing other practitioners who were calling themselves functional, but all they were doing was treating labs with supplements, or they were jumping into deep, harsh protocols that the patient wasn't ready for on many different levels. And they actually felt worse. They felt triggered, and now they don't trust practitioners. And it's it just breaks my heart to see people who are already struggling now have even less hope about their ability to heal, and have this big obstacle, which is trust. Because if you don't trust your practitioner, you could be given the best protocols in the world that work on a physiological level, and you still won't heal. Because we have to have that mind-body connection. So research makes that really clear. What you believe is going to impact how good you can feel. And so if we have clients that are starting to not really believe that functional medicine works, or that their practitioner can guide them towards their goals, then it's going to be really hard for them to ever reach them. So the more education I can do, and the more I have to constantly learn myself too. It's not like I have all the answers and, hey, if you just listen to me, then like all of your patients will be amazing. I want to always learn, but I'm already going to do that anyway. So that's just who I am. And so I can help more practitioners by sharing what I've already learned, and then continuing to share what I continue to learn, so that we can have less and less of those patients that do feel burned. Because I've done that myself. Like, I've worked with a client in a way that made them feel like they weren't getting the help they needed, and now they had less hope, and that's the worst feeling in the world. And so I need to always be learning, for each different and particular client, how can I better adjust and change in order to help them to not only see results, but also feel really good about it.
Amazing. And that's so powerful, and I think so under talked about is there's a right practitioner for the right client, and sometimes there's a mismatch, right? And that mismatch is going to create a situation where even if, like, on paper you recommended all the right things, it's just not going to happen. Like, we know about the placebo effect, and then there's the nocebo effect, right? Where there will actually be either no change or negative change, right? From any sort of intervention you provide them with. So that connection is so important. And that's where, like, I know early on in my career, that was my objective with every single person that I worked with, is I always wanted to connect with them on a deeper level, and kind of see where the psychology was, where their identity was, and kind of the language that they were speaking, and trying to find the quote unquote root cause within that, because that's often the first domino to fall with health issues. So that's so powerful. And the one big thing that a lot of practitioners, they either learn the hard way, and that's literally why me and you do what we do, is we're trying to prevent them from doing that, is like, you could go to the bookstore and you could buy a book, and that book might be $20, $30, and you get to essentially get the entire life experience of somebody who probably spent 40, 50 years writing that book, if not more. So that's one way to learn. But the issue with that is that information was most relevant at a certain time. So now information changes so quickly. So I think both of us probably might agree to this, but I always have this feeling that, like, I need to be doing more for the practitioners I work with. I need to be doing more. I need to be doing more. And that thought, like, it never leaves you. You just want to make sure you're giving them more and more and more, and getting them up to speed. But we're in a very fast changing world. Like, we're not in something that has been done the exact same way for 30, 40 years, right? This isn't changing tires where all you need is like a torque gun, and like that hasn't changed yet, right? This is something that has so many moving parts, and we're also now dealing with people that have trauma and other situations. So I know you mentioned probably a very hard lesson that you learned by this person you were trying to be the right fit for, but maybe it just didn't work. Is there a practice lesson that stands out to you in your career that taught you a lot?
Yes, yeah, that is exactly right. I have learned, and I continue to learn because every patient is so different, how to match that patient's stage of readiness. And it's not just their mental readiness, because they, mentally they can be like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, let's go for it. But to really match their holistic readiness, because if their nervous system isn't ready, then anything you do is probably going to make them worse. Right? So we've learned like different assessment tools over the years of how to use questionnaires, how to use specific questions in our evaluation, how to see how they respond to just a few initial changes. Like we start really small. We don't really start with like, 8 supplements and and the most restrictive autoimmune diet or, that kind of stuff. And so we have, learned to go slower, especially with patients that have a lot of symptoms. We use the medical symptom questionnaire from IFM. We've adapted it a little bit. But if they score 100 or above, that's a patient who does not feel safe. That's a patient whose limbic system is going to be more activated because it doesn't know how well it's going to survive because its systems have gone offline, right? So if the body could heal itself and they could be better by changing their diet and doing some meditation, then they wouldn't reach a MSQ score of 100. So when we start to have patients with that or other stress-related conditions like POTS or interstitial cystitis or IBS or GERD, different things, migraines, that we might be like, okay, let's try to just kind of see how you respond, because your body will tell us a little bit better oftentimes than your brain will what you're actually ready for and what kind of pace we can go at. And so that we don't end up triggering you, and also how to just kind of phrase these things, because it's so hard to talk to a patient about how, like, I think stress is an issue for you, when in their mind it's like, no, if you just kill the bug, everything's gonna be fine. And so I ever never want someone to feel invalidated. So sometimes it takes invalidating someone and them being upset, and then I'm always asking my patients if they did get upset. I mean, it's been a few years really since I've had like an upset patient really. And so I relearned these things, fortunately, in the first couple of years. If we do have an upset patient, sending them a message and being like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I totally honor that I did something wrong here. I would love to learn more about it. If you want to help other patients not to get triggered this way, please let me know. And they'll oftentimes share with us, what it is that we did that just kind of felt like this was too much. You didn't understand me, you weren't listening, or made me feel bad. I wasn't doing enough, right? So it's sometimes really difficult to give feedback that's going to allow them to grow, and then they might interpret that as they're not enough and they're failing. So
that's so huge, because you're not just taking information. I think a lot of times, like, there might be a one-off situation in a practice where maybe a practitioner does like get that courage, because it's a tough question to ask, like, hey, can you give us feedback? What did we do differently? But you're someone who, from the short time I've known you, you seem to take information and really analyze it and turn it into an action step very, very quickly. So
I do.
I do want to give you a giant high five for that. So I'm seeing the evolution of your practice, and you mentioned 7 years. So I'm sure it's evolved a lot from like year 1 to 7. And
Yeah.
the one other thing I've learned about you is like you're extremely evidence-based. So even like discovering by number, like, hey, this is a person whose nervous system might not be in the right place. Maybe we should take a different route around. A lot of people don't do that. And guess what? ChatGPT doesn't do that either. So when those people go and ask for algorithms and protocols and recommendations, like, that's not being considered. How does evidence behind what you recommend impact the effectiveness of your practice?
Oh man, it's so strong. And evidence can be in different ways. So like 2 big categories of evidence is numbers, having hard data like that, and then also having the research behind what you're recommending and what you're doing. So when it comes to the data component, being able to say, for example, using a DNRS questionnaire, which is Dynamic Neural Retraining System created by Annie Hopper, that questionnaire has been really effective for us to be able to identify those patients that are going to be hyper reactive, and we need to really change everything about our approach, what we're recommending, as well as how we're speaking to them. And if they have a high score, it shows them that their nervous system is in overdrive. And so it provides that extra bit of, oh, this is not just your opinion. This is not just one person saying, hey, I think this is what you've got going on, and I need to go get a second opinion or third. This is an actual evidence-based piece of, test essentially that's giving me a comparative number compared to healthy controls that really allows me to see how dysfunctional or how abnormal my system is. That creates instant buy-in. They're like, oh, okay, I see this now. And we can tell them that we have this evidence from our own practice. When clients score this is usually what they need in order to get better. And if you don't do this, this is usually what's going to happen. So those recommendations are taken so much more to heart, and the client is so much more likely to then do some things to work on that nervous system than they would have if you were just giving them your own personal insight. And likewise, when it comes to research, we have a knowledge base that we've created that has thousands and thousands of pages in it. So we've got information on every health condition and supplement and lab and what the research shows behind it. Because I don't want to give anything that is not going to get buy-in from the general population. Because for example, if you give a client who's like, I'm into alternative stuff, you don't have to convince me of anything, just give me whatever you've got. But their husband at home is like, no, is this legit? And so there's this constant tension that I'm trying to heal this way, and my husband's not being supportive. He doesn't think I'm doing something that's even real. Then that patient, again, is not going to really get the same results. They're not going to heal as well. So if we have evidence that can convince the doctor and the spouse that doesn't think that functional alternative medicine is a valuable pathway, then now we can get buy-in from the whole team, from the whole group, and the patient can move forward in a way that feels like they're supported, and that's going to allow them to get better results. And also in the client session itself too, with that individual client, when you can say, hey, when someone did this activity, they stopped using blue light for 2 hours before bed, their hormone, their growth hormone or melatonin or cortisol or insulin, whatever have you, decrease or increase by this percentage. Whereas if you have blue light 15 minutes before you go to bed, it had this effect. At those moments, clients go, oh, wow. Right? When you have an emotional response, when there's novelty, I just learned something that is, factual, and now my emotions are involved, and I'm like, oh, that's going to get hardwired in. The client's really learning. Versus if you say, hey, blue light's not good for you, wear these blue light blocking glasses, I'm putting that in your notes. All right, next thing. Right? It's going to go in one ear and out the other. Client's not even going to know what happened. You're lucky if they review their notes in between appointments. And if they do, they see that and they're like, oh yeah, I need to get those. Oh, okay, here's a text message just came in. Right? And you meet with them and they haven't gotten anything. But if you have that moment where you tell them what the research showed and they're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I had no idea. Now it's something that's more internal that their bodies experience, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to want to take action on it.
Wow, I have to play with this tool, and I wish, again, from a time machine perspective, I could go back in time and use this early on, because that is a cautionary tale that every practitioner resonates with. And I can recall so many instances, especially if somebody's referred into you, they kind of have a picture of who you are and a pre-assumed bias of this person's going to help me with supplements. Especially you mentioned earlier, like, the term functional medicine it's too big of an umbrella. You could say you went to 10 different functional medicine practitioners. It's a completely different experience, right? And some of them, unfortunately, are following the this for that model. So it's just with supplements and not medications. So I can think back and I'm like, there's so many times where I felt there was a lifestyle piece. Somebody was burning the midnight oil. They were staying up far too late. Or if you called people out on their stress, they would normalize their stress and say, I'm not stressed. Like, this is just a normal. I work 60, 70 hours a week. I barely sleep. I have no time to prepare my meals, but I'm not stressed. That's just life. And I wish I had something evidence-based, because when you would bring that up or call it out, like, in the back of their head, I've never been said it in these words, but it'd be like, hey, be quiet, Mr. Supplement Man. Just give me the pill for it, right? Like, what do you know about my life? What do you know about stress? What do you know about blue light? And I'm not wearing these wacky glasses. And these are the thoughts people go through, right? And you're right, they come with their notebook, and the notebook is filled by the end of your program. But when you actually action audit it, how many of these steps did you actually action? They don't have enough skin in the game. They don't have enough motivation or inspiration or evidence, which is the key term here, to actually make that meaningful switch. So I think this could be a massive, massive, massive resource for practitioners. And it's that first part of your fulfillment formula, right? It's
Yes.
you need that evidence-based clinical knowledge and something that grows with you. So like again, I can't wait to play around with it.
Yeah, I had a client who has been through a lot of trauma throughout her childhood, really severe, significant things. She had seen a counselor, so she had done talk therapy. So she kind of thought, well, mostly I understand what happened, why it happened, what it does to me. I kind of feel like I've gotten over it. But she really struggled with her weight, and she struggled with emotional eating. And her weight was not just a result of emotional eating. She has a ton of inflammation and metabolic dysfunction all over the place. A big part of that is because of the state of her nervous system. But she really wanted to lose weight, and she was so upset with herself that she was constantly self-sabotaging. And I was kind of telling her, hey, a big part of this is the limiting beliefs that we have, the way that we cope with stress, the things that we're storing that are changing your way your metabolism works. We need to address that. And it was kind of like I think I've kind of already done that. And also, but I want to lose weight. I was like, why do you keep talking about my trauma? Like, it's done, it's in the past, stop it. And so eventually I realized, okay, I need to give her, some evidence, right? So I gave her the ACE questionnaire, Adverse Childhood Experiences. She went home and filled it out. And when she came back to her next appointment, that was literally all we talked about for that entire 50-minute session. And a huge part of it was, one, she's like, when I filled it out and I scored a 9 out of 10, I sat there and sobbed. And I realized, what I've been through needs a lot more than the counseling than what I had. But then the real magic of it came, which is I showed my husband. And my husband had never really understood, like, why am I depressed? Why can't I just get it together? Like, if I want a goal, why don't I go pursue it? And he took the questionnaire and he scored a 1 out of 10. Wow. And he realized in that moment, I do not understand what this person has been through. What they've been through is not anything like what I've ever experienced in my life. And it changed the dynamic of their marriage. And I mean, it's just, I get goosebumps right now talking about it. So that sometimes those, having some data, having questionnaires or sometimes a test, it really can be the thing that just provides that transformative shift that we need to become the person that we want to be.
Amazing. And what stood out to me there is when you compare it with labs, like a lot of people over rely on labs and
yes,
for labs, but when you think about a lab, you provide the sample, but the analysis happens from the lab. Whereas when you fill out a questionnaire like this, it's literally you being pretty much, I don't want to say forced, but you're facing it head on, what the question is asking you, to explore that internally and actually put pen to paper. And then you get a quantification right after that with a score that you can then compare to family members and other people as well. It's so powerful. So I've always been such a fan of questionnaires because it creates a lot of skin in the game and it allows people to go introspective and actually explore these other areas that it's not just us preaching it to them, right?
Yeah.
People sometimes just like think that what we want for them is this ideal of health where they're doing everything perfectly like a robot. But that's not true. Like, we want practical solutions for each and every person and what you can fit into your life without having to flip it upside down or become someone new or move out into the middle of nowhere where there's no Wi-Fi signals. Yeah, so it's very, very practical. So I love that you're doing that, and it's so powerful. And this is somebody that, like, you can never get that from a lab test, right? Like,
right.
Yes, you can say, hey, this is a bug, and I've put all my eggs in a bug basket before personally as well, and it didn't play out. But this is like where true health is found on these levels. So like that person's walking through life, and there's no supplement that's getting around that. They're going to be in permanent cell danger response and not be reported. So how many practitioners have beaten themselves up over someone that needed to explore that side to them? So powerful. What I love, Katie, and as we're getting further into the interview, is you've taught me so much. I've learned so much on this interview. I have to go back and study the notes and the transcript and look up all these questionnaires you did mention. And how do you continue learning and staying inspired without burning out? Like, you're managing a practice, you're working with practitioners, and you're continuing to learn. Like, how do you do all that?
Yeah, I mean, I will say part of it is not just my own effort. I do have ADHD. So I am hardwired to multitask and to take in information constantly, and my brain works faster than the average person's. So I don't want to fool anyone by being like, I'm so great and I just work so hard. It is actually kind of like my natural resting state. It's a little bit of an advantage when it comes to this field and being a practitioner and being a business owner. But because of that, I mean, I will learn all the time, whether I'm driving in the car, I am folding laundry, I'm in the shower, I might be listening to a summit, a podcast, a audiobook, a YouTube channel. And so I do have to put boundaries on that. Because if you were always in that state, then your nervous system is in an engaged state. I like to use my Oura ring, and it will track what my HRV and heart rate is. And an engaged state is higher up on the stress scale than a restorative state is. And that's going to be more, parasympathetic. And at the very top is stress, and that's sympathetic. And engaged is kind of knocking on the door of the stress section. And so you don't want to always be pushing your body into that state. It's actually not going to make you, as great of a practitioner, because you're not going to have the connection component, because connection happens in a little bit more of a parasympathetic state. And then you're also, your health is going to suffer a little bit. You don't sleep as well. I'm just not able to, go for 18, or 16 hours and then just like stop and go to bed and then get all the deep and REM that I need, right? So I have to create some boundaries. And I also like to use my Oura to check to see if I'm going past boundaries, because like you said, I'm more analytical. So that is one of my weaknesses, as I'm not as intuitive. I'm not as emotional. Those are things I have to work at and that I always am trying to grow in. And that my patients have taught me a lot about how to be better at those things. But I still like to rely on my data to tell me what's going on in my body sometimes. And my data showed me that during the workday, I was sitting pretty high at a stress state for a lot of it. And so I had to learn how to take breaks between patients. And even at my mealtime, I don't, fully take breaks. I actually am only taking like a couple minutes in between patient sessions. I have technically 10 minutes. It usually ends up being 5 by the time I'm done with the patient stuff, and then I've got to prepare for the next one. And so I just, stand up, look out the window, sit back down, or apply my essential oil, like something just really small. And that made a big difference actually in how drained I might feel by the end of the day, and also in my numbers on Oura. Same thing at lunchtime, just step outside when I let my dog out to go to the bathroom. I go out with him and take a look at the sun, or stand by the window and take a look at the sun and just remind myself that I'm this little tiny person in this big, vast world. And then in the evenings, I do the same thing. So I have like an hour to 2 hours, so just depending on what I feel I need that day, that is just total connection. So it's either going and meeting with a friend or spending time with my husband. We have dinner, we might watch a show, we walk the dog around the block and just talk to neighbors. And it's just this time that I know is like, I'm really absorbing it. The hard part is sometimes we are so driven and have such a busy schedule that we take these moments because we have to, because our brain literally won't let us focus, but we're not doing it intentionally. And so we don't actually feel like we got restorative time, because we kind of did it out of necessity and we're feeling guilty about it the whole time. So we didn't fully enjoy it, and we weren't really in the moment, because we're like, I know I shouldn't be watching this show right now. I know I shouldn't still be hanging out with my kids right now. I got to get back to this project. And so we take that time, but we don't actually get the credit for it. So we don't come back with the surplus, right? So I take that time intentionally.
Yeah, so there's some powerful terms you use there. So one is intention, for sure, and then the other one that came to me as you were speaking is you've learned to cultivate a higher sense of self-awareness using data, but also intuition. And the fact that you did mention like, hey, these are areas that I'm improving upon. People have taught me, patients have given me feedback, and like the fact that you're self-aware about these things, that's very, very powerful as well. And like you pretty much, like that was me in a nutshell, and I'm undoing a lot of it myself and building more intention. But it's funny, like anytime I would go for a walk, I'd have the headphones in, podcast going, and then like I think back and I'm like, the best and worst thing that ever happened was allowing any sort of audio or video file to go 2x speed or 3x speed.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what my brain's taking in information on all of the time. And sure enough, like it's always going, right? And I always used to think that even if I'm driving somewhere, if I'm not learning while I'm driving, like whether it's an audiobook or a podcast or something, I'm wasting time. I had this like guilt, and it's only over the last couple of years where I'm like, you know what? let me just put on some of my favorite music and let's just like mellow out on the way there. Give yourself those breaks. And even the mini breaks during the day you're giving yourself. Practitioners don't give themselves permission to take those breaks. And like, we have to practice what we preach. We have to be living proof for our clients and patients. And if you can't do that, like, it's very tough for you to calm someone's nervous system down when you're stressed out. And I truly believe people can feel that off of you. And like,
yes. Yeah, absolutely. HeartMath Institute has definitely proven that if you're within 6 to 8 feet or so of someone, you are going to be impacting their stress state by the kind of energy you're giving off. And if you're a practitioner listening to this and you can relate, but the idea of being more still or having more quiet time is just too much, because that's where I was. Still have the phone with you, still take the headphones with you, whatever it is that you need to do, and then just see, right? So at first it'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go on this walk, or I'm gonna go on this run, but I'm like, okay, I can't keep myself in constant learning and engaged mode. I should be just listening to nature, letting my thoughts do their thing, but that would just felt too scary, too overwhelming, and I wouldn't wanna do it, so then I would just plan on listening to the thing that I wanted to listen to. So instead it was, I'm gonna just start without having this. I've got my headphones in my pocket. I've got my phone in my pocket. It's ready to go if I feel like I can't handle this anymore. But let me just try having some silence or connection or just looking at nature or whatever it is. And 90% of the time, I make it all the way home without having ever played it. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? Give yourself that option, cave whenever it feels like you need to. At least you're making progress in the right direction.
That's so healthy, right? It's not forcing change. It's going with the flow and seeing what you need in that moment in time. So I love it. And I love that that's a system in itself that you do have where you don't just go cold turkey on it. It is kind of step by step. So I'd love to just pick your brain about systems a little bit. Are there any systems or rituals that keep your practice flowing smoothly?
I love systems. I love efficiency to a fault. Every strength becomes a weakness when it's kind of unchecked, right? And so I'm always trying to check this strength that I have. I'm loving efficiency. So if anyone needs to find a way to save time and not repeat themselves, I am your girl. And that's what we do at our practice. And all of my staff, always makes fun of me because of it. So I just never want to spend time doing something again that I don't need to. So anytime I do something for the first time that I know I'm going to be doing again, I'm taking that extra time. It might only take 10 minutes to do the task, but I'm spending 20 minutes on it, because then I'm writing an SOP for it, which is a standard operating procedure. And I might be recording a video on it if someone else is going to be the one that's doing this task. And I'm thinking through what's going to be the most efficient way to do it. If I'm responding to someone by email and I know I'm going to get asked that question again by email, I am copying and pasting that, putting it into my knowledge base, and I have it available to copy and paste back whenever I get that question again by email, right? So that's what a system is. It's deciding what you're going to do in the future based on predetermined rules. And that's going to save you time from not having to figure it out again in that moment. So you get asked that question, you don't have to think, okay, what am I going to respond? You can just copy and paste. So it saves you brain energy, so you can use those thoughts for something else, but then it also saves you time. So SOPs is a huge one. We're always building them. We're always improving them. We have them for social media. We have them for client care. We have them for admin tasks, whatever it is that we do at our practice. I also love snippets. It's kind of like an SOP. So snippets are like auto text, like a smart phrase that you can put into your EHR or EMR. Hopefully if you're using one, if not, you can just put them into a Google Drive doc. And you can then just, whenever you have that topic that you're going to be talking about your client with, or a lab that you're reviewing, you can add that snippet into the notes. Usually it's just 1 or 2 clicks. And you don't have to then write out those client notes. So I write out probably maybe a quarter or so of my client notes. That is something that's new and fresh that I have to respond to something that they're dealing with. And the rest of it is a snippet that I go in and modify. They might not need this dose of a supplement, or they might not need to do all 4 of these sleep things because they're already doing 2 of them. So I delete 2 of the 4 that's in the snippets. But it's something that we don't have to write. So it gives us more time to talk with a client. And it takes me about 2 minutes to finish my client notes after each session. So I spend a total, and I can see 6 clients in a day because we do 1-hour appointments. And so I might spend 6 hours seeing patients that day, and I'm spending 12 minutes doing charting. So So those are absolutely vital. If you don't have them, make sure you have them for many things as you can. And every month I'm adding at least one new one, and that I find myself, okay, I'm going to have to use this again. We also have just like the tech tools that you are, probably an expert more than I am on this, but I use Trello for project management. It's free. I've never paid for it. I've used it with contractors and staff. It's so much better than sending anything by email. That's a task. You do not want to play the email game, right? That's just such the biggest time suck. So if I'm going to ask someone, my staff or a contractor, to complete something, I'm doing it in Trello. It's going to be a card. It's going to have exact instructions for what to do. It'll have a checklist so that I know that the person's going to do each of the things that I really want them to do. So I don't have to keep going back and forth. Hey, can you adjust this or do it this way? I don't think you saw this instruction. You don't lose an instruction if you have to check off every item to complete the task. And you can put a due date on there, and then it gets moved to a pending or review column and eventually a done column. So there are no emails about that task getting done. You can easily track whether it's being done. You don't have to email someone like, hey, where are you on completing this task? Right? So you save a lot of time with communication when you use a task management, which I'll do for research, or, hey, this supplement just went out of stock. Can you find a backup for it that we can use in the future if this ever happens again? Or here's a new lab I heard about on a summit. Can you look into it, see if we should offer it? What are the steps? Those are some examples of what you might put on a task management. And finally, Slack. So Slack will also save you from having a lot of emails. So I use Slack to communicate with contractors as well as with my staff. And that way I can put a task out there because I might not know whose board to put it on. I just say, hey, I need this done. Who volunteers? And the staff can see who's already written back, or, it's been almost 24 hours. No one's written back. Okay, I should volunteer. And then I can easily assign them the task in Trello, or I can make an announcement all at one time. I'm not having to email each individual person, and I'm not going to get emails back from them. And now I have threads I need to keep track of, right? So Slack also makes everything really easy. So my staff and we really don't do anything hardly in email at all. If we have to communicate about a client, we have a group chat in our portal, and that way all people can see the answer. So if in a month another practitioner has a question that is very similar, they're like, oh yeah, I saw her already give that answer to that a month ago, and now they're not asking me about it. So If you have a staff, if you have multiple people that do the same thing, do not have them ask questions or answer them singly. You should do that as a group so that you're not going to get that repeat question back.
That's so huge. And what I love about it is you've built these systems brick by brick. So you built them where you needed them. And as I was kind of trying to categorize these systems in my own head, like when you think about it, something like the Trello board you're using, that turns into a project manager. You've essentially replaced the need to hire a project manager and someone overseeing all the micro details. The fact that you record these SOPs and you have a database that you can go to and people you train can go to as well, like that isn't built overnight. I know that. But if you build that awareness into your day that, hey, this is something I'm doing a lot, let me create an SOP around it. Let me create some sort of automation or some sort of capture of the idea or what the steps should be. Like just think about 30 days later, 60 days later, 90 days later, that database is going to look really, really good. And guess what? You'll have a lot more time in your schedule to continue building it out because you've saved that from all of the run around and searching emails and threads that you have to do. So that's amazing. It's complex, but it's built on simplicity. So that's like music to my ears. And
yes, and because of that, I go on vacation for 2 weeks at a time, usually each year to some international place with my husband. And I really don't have anything I need to do during those 2 weeks. My staff, any question that they have, any question that a client asks them, they go into our knowledge base and they find out what the answer is there. And if they don't do that, then I'm in the car on the way to the airport to go to our next country, and I can just copy the link to the answer in the knowledge base and paste it to them and have an answer done in 2 seconds. That's, hey, here it is. But they know to really look before they ask me now. It took like a year, I gotta say, for everyone to get familiar with using a knowledge base and using SOPs before coming straight to me. but now they have gotten really good at that. But it all just makes it so that the practice kind of runs itself, because the manager is the SOPs. It's not me. I don't have all the answers. The answers are written down, and so I can step away and do other things, whether it be vacation or working on Functional Practitioner Academy, which is my other business for helping to train other practitioners. I can do that for 20 hours of the week and have my practice stay exactly the same amount of patients that are being seen, and staff hours and everything that doesn't require my own effort.
Amazing. And I think some of the practitioners listening are like, what? You take vacations? It's because of a lack of systems, right? So many people are tethered to their practices and they can't leave. They literally can't take a vacation, as crazy as that sounds. And I know when you mentioned the charting shortcut, I think charting is a word that makes every practitioner just go, like deep in the stomach. And yeah, if you can create these systems that allow you to really save time on those repetitive tasks, things you're doing all of the time, and they should be customized to you, that's just so amazing, and a way for you to feel fulfilled. You can't feel fulfilled if you're just managing this bandwidth all the time of like the things on your to-do list and the things you forgot about and the things that are delayed. So I love that. And I'd love to ask you, kind of with the landscape that's changing and technology that's been just exponentially increasing, and now we have AI as well, what trends do you see shaping the future of natural healthcare, and how do you plan to stay up to date with them, evolve with them over time?
Yep. So I think there's two big trends that I see. So one, of course, is the data side, right? And the tech. And that's what you were able to mentor me on, is how all that's changing, because it's so fast, and it is, there's so many different options. So I am so grateful to have someone like you in the field who is keeping up with all of that and testing it out for all of us. I think especially when it comes to data, it's going to be the synthesis of it. So not so much providing data to clients, but it's going to be more so being able to synthesize data from all kinds of different areas and say, here's the evidence, not from a questionnaire, not from a lab, or only from those things. Here's the evidence from your own body, because I have integrated your MSQ, your medical symptom questionnaire, the information from your intake form, the Dutch test results, and your aura data, and together it's painting this cohesive picture. Here's what your body's telling us. Right. And so now clients going to be able to immediately take action, see the changes from it. You don't have to wait until you repeat labs in 3 months or 6 months to be able to see the change. They'll be able to see a change on a weekly basis and know, oh yeah, this is working because my heart rate has improved a little bit and my glucose has gone down a little, and whatever those little shifts are going to be. So I think the more that we can use wearables and devices and trackers, and we can have access to software that's going to help to synthesize all this. Because if you're meeting with a client and they use AI, right? They're using AI at home, they're getting answers instantly. And you meet with a client and you're like, they ask you a question, you say, oh, well, that would be related to what we found on your stool test results. And then you go into their labs folder and you click up, you have to scroll through 15 test results, and then you pull up the stool, and then you have to go to page 4 and you have to try to, right? And they're just sitting there and they're used to, like, immediately have an answer when I'm asking AI, why am I sitting here waiting 60 seconds to get an answer from my practitioner that I'm paying for? Right? That's going to, over time, it's going to become a bigger and bigger gap. And so we're going to need to be able to get really fast answers and use software that AI is going to be able to synthesize all that for us, so that we can just be like, oh yeah, let me just see, did they have low adrenal function? And then AI will be like, oh, their Dutch test showed this, right? A little chat message in their portal. So the data part is a big one. Did you want to say anything before I move on to the second one?
No, I totally agree with you. What's going through my head is just, for the practitioners that are listening, just imagine a client or patient and imagine they have a perfect clone of themselves, and they go to a practice who's not leveraging this in their practice, and they go to a practice who is leveraging the AI and the tech, and they're able to get that answer. And oftentimes, like, humans make errors, right? They might miss something. They might not be able to connect the dot. Like, I don't like to use the word competition in the medical world or the functional medical world or anything like that, but like, this client is going to get a much better experience and much better information to them because they're leveraging that technology. So continue.
And we're talking about technology that allows us to do our job better, we're not talking about technology that replaces us in any way. Because if you're using AI to be like, here's my client's test results, what treatment plan should I create for them? I really wholeheartedly do not believe in that. and that is unfortunately something that is being provided to practitioners on a very corporate level within the functional medicine space. And that is something that I just really feel is going to negatively impact the client's journey. But we're using AI to make us, smarter, better, faster, to be our way to gather data and to synthesize data. But it's not what makes the treatment decisions. We still are going to need our brain, our connection with the client, our ability to determine that client's readiness on so many levels, and how they're going to perceive an intervention, and talking with them about what they think would be best, and all of those kinds of things that go into the treatment decisions. So the second one of what I see as trends coming up is, I think in the past, if we wanted to be able to impact more people and make more money, we could create courses. We could create online assets that didn't require us to be present for them. We could create group programs that have a combination of live and then the online asset that we could charge a really high amounts for because there wasn't anyone else doing it, and it provided a result that they couldn't get elsewhere. But now clients can so easily get information elsewhere, and AI can tell them what to do about their health. We know that there's always going to be things that they shouldn't be doing, but the client doesn't know that. So they think that they are getting good answers from an AI that's really customized to them that would be better than a generic person from a generic online course. So I think if we want to be able to charge higher levels, it's going to require things that AI can't provide. So things like concierge or done for you services, where it's we make the supplement order for you, we make the lab order for you, we make the blue light blocking glasses order for you. We're taking things off of your plate that you don't have to do. That's something that is still, kind of unique for us that we can provide. I know there's AI agents that eventually are going to be able to do some of these things, but we're probably a ways away from clients using that on a regular basis. So the more that you can have something done for the clients where they don't have to go figure it out. If you tell them, hey, I think you have an airway disorder, you should go have that checked out. Like, the client has to do a lot of work to figure that out. And so the more that you can say, hey, I think you might have an airway disorder. Here's this ring that you can wear from this company that you can get it at this link right here. And it will track you for 3 days, and it will tell you more about your sleep. And then here's this person that I have personally connected with in our town who can assess the data from that and give you more information on what would help. Right? Or here's an app that you can use that's free for 7 days and track what your snoring sounds like. If you can just give them the exact information and they know the exact step to take, that's going to make you really valuable, because AI might give them like 5 options, right? Like, hey, how do I learn more about this? And then there's going to be this like 9-point list, and how do you take action on that? So if you want to be able to charge more, I think you're going to want to have to do more for the client, have more answers for them, make things easier for them to have completed, and have a little bit less of the generic advice of here's something that can help a population that they'd have to just learn on their own. That's going to be good for content, for free things, but it's going to be harder, I think, over time to have patients pay a lot for those things.
No, absolutely. And it's there's things AI can't do for you, and AI is not gonna like do the sit-ups for you, right? It's not going to open the supplement bottle for you, at least until robotics become a thing. But it's something that all clients need. Is they need that point from point A to B condensed down into like the shortest actionable step possible for them to get ahead. And you're absolutely right. Like, that's what they're going to value. And the fact that you have this experience, that you've seen this play out in other clients, and you can pick up on the similarities, and then you're being guided by technology on top of that and AI on top of that, like that's the fulfillment formula at play, like to its max.
Yep.
So like in this today's talk that we've had here, like I'm seeing like you have like 50 years of experience condensed down into the 7. We got to get you to apply for the next Amazon CEO or along those lines.
Too kind.
Yeah, I'd love to just go back to the starting. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out, a brand new practitioner? What message do you have for them?
Yeah. So don't do it alone. You just don't need to nowadays. And I don't mean do it with AI. I mean, use others' experiences because it will make you go so much faster. And I did the same thing in 2020, the first full year that I was in practice. I was listening to Sachin Patel on his Facebook Lives like every single day. And I had his book that was on how to start a practice and his checklist and all the things. And it saved me. He had some things in there about what do you ask about when it comes to a lease? And I was able to ask those questions and I was like, oh, that was so helpful. And if I didn't know that, I would have had to backtrack and it would have, made my life more difficult. So don't do it alone, meaning find others who have gone before you and have done it and have learned the hard way and learn from them. It doesn't mean you're going to learn everything. You're still going to make mistakes the hard way because you're doing things in your own unique way. We're all so different. So you'll never have to worry about like, oh, well, then I'm just copying what this person did and I'm never going to learn my own lessons. Trust me, the world's going to give you lessons no matter how much copying you do. That's always going to be there. So try to, whether it be through just listening to free content or enrolling in programs, obviously, from your own clients, right? If they just listen to your YouTube, they're not going to change as much as if they enrolled in, actually working with you as a client. And so same thing when it comes to your business. I thought that I would be able to be successful just because I knew how to work with clients. And it took a lot of heartache to learn that anything you want to be successful at, you actually have to study. You have to learn about it. And so when I started hiring people, just because I knew how to work with clients, did not know I meant how to be a manager. I did not know how to be a good manager. And because of that, I had difficult relationships with my employees and some of them quit. And I was so distraught, like, why are they quitting? What is happening? And it dawned on me, what made me think that I would just naturally be a good manager is because I have people skills with clients. It is its own thing. I had to go and read books and listen to experts and take their programs to learn how to operate a practice where I was a manager and a business owner. And so anything that you want to be good at, whether it be social media or it be growing a practice where you're scaling and you have a team, or it be just really good dealing with your finances and knowing how to make more income in your practice, go learn from other experts and don't just try to figure out yourself because you think you're smart enough or skilled in one area will translate to another, because that was not the case. And life is so much better now that I actually studied what it meant to manage people and to be a business owner.
That's some of the best advice I've ever heard on the podcast, and I love it. And I would be nowhere without the people that I've learned from and the mentors in my life. So that's where I was able to stand on the shoulder of giants. And I still, like you said, made those crazy mistakes that like have completely rattled the way that you live, and that's always guaranteed on the road. But what's really powerful there is it's the classical Dunning-Kruger effect, where the people that are first starting out, they overestimate their ability to know everything, right? So you thought that your client skills would transfer to hiring employees, and it's a completely different world, right? And now you're an expert in many of those categories, I would say, but you probably underestimate your ability because you still err on the side of caution and you want to make sure that you dot every I, cross every T. So it's the same trajectory or the same journey we're on with different stories and different like inflection points and pivotal moments and downfalls and all of that. So I love that, and that's such perfect advice. Katie, what's next for you? What's lighting you up right now?
Oh, I am so on fire right now for helping other practitioners. So I love getting to see, because I've now trained some practitioners who are not part of my practice through the Functional Practitioner Academy. So this is the second business that I created in order to put this fulfillment formula into action and teaching other practitioners on how to implement it so we can all be more fulfilled as you have that similar value. And I've been able to help some of the members in that improve their confidence, improve their client results that they're getting, want to actually reach out to more people and successfully achieve getting clients by reaching out to people because they have this framework that they're operating from, that they know whatever that client presents to me, I'm going to be able to have an answer for. And you don't know that if in your first couple of years of practice, or you're trying to work with some person in a niche that you don't normally see, you don't have that confidence, and a client can pick up on that and it changes your ability to help them. So I'm just so excited to help more clients through helping practitioners make their businesses more efficient, make their practice, and practice means your work with a client. You can be an employee of a clinic and you still have a practice, right? The medical director or your boss, they're not in charge of how you work with your client and what kind of results you get them. You are the only person responsible for that. So you have a practice regardless if you're the one making the financial decisions. And so don't kind of exclude yourself from this. You can always improve and grow and change and evolve and get even better client results when you look at it, at having a practice as your individual work with clients. And then of course that can expand out from there if you are the owner. And so I'm just so passionate about helping practitioners to get more evidence-based, to not be recommending things because they are so marketable or because they are trendy, but to really be recommending them because we have research showing that that works, and to be more root cause focused. And when I say root cause, I don't mean the result you see on a lab, because that was able to be there most of the time because of deeper, more upstream root causes. And you have to do both, right? So you have to address the most upstream root causes, like someone's beliefs or their way that they live their life and how that impacts their circadian rhythm or what diet they're eating. And you have to address the root causes that are effects of that, the bacterial overgrowth or the toxic burden or whatever it may be. So you have to address both. Fixing the upstream does not automatically fix the lower ones, but fixing the lower ones is not the deepest root cause. So I think that the more we can help practitioners do that really deep, hard work of addressing both from a place that's not going to drain them and allows them to have impact, but also have a profitable practice, the more clients are going to benefit from that. They're the ones in the end that really get to experience the positive effects of that. So that's what I'm really passionate and lit up about at this moment.
Oh, I love it. And I know you help a lot of practitioners right now. You're going to continue to help a lot of practitioners. And you're absolutely right. Too many people are focused on repairing the leak that's in the drywall and in the ceiling that you see above you. But the real root cause of that might be the shingle that came loose on the roof, right? So you gotta address both. You can't just leave one or keep repairing the same one. So it's such a powerful lesson, and just like that one lesson in itself will save somebody decades of trial and error. So I love it. Thank you so much for today. Where can people go to learn more about you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, fxpractitioner.com. And you can see we've got our, social media there, Facebook, Instagram. We also have our YouTube there, and I have a ton of free resources. Again, I'm always thinking about what would I have wanted, I started my practice 9 years ago in terms of working at a clinic, and then started my own business 7 years ago. And I think of what would have really helped me at those times, and paying for resources would not have helped me because I did not feel like at that time, I just didn't know it was valuable to pay people for their lessons. And so I have a ton of free resources for anyone who just wants to try and get started. And one of those that I love is the focus framework. And this is something that can help practitioners to feel more fulfilled because it will help you to focus on the right things. So it's a set of questions that you just ask yourself. I actually have it right here. I always have it right on my desk because I've had this for like 2 years, but I still have to remind myself all the time, is what I'm working on right now really what I need to be working on? So I've got things like that can just improve your practice, as well as evidence-based resources and all kinds of other things.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And for especially new practitioners, that is just so helpful because it's not something that they have to pay for, and it's going to help them start making an impact right away. So thank you, Katie. I love your energy. I love your passion, and it's an honor to be on this journey with you and serve clients and patients to the best of our abilities.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have had this conversation with you.
Amazing. Well, take care. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.